Oh, okay. Yeah, that's...
At 50 below zero, metal turns brittle enough to crack. Jet fuel can freeze solid in the tank. And yet, every single day, the most advanced fighter jets in the world sit parked. At one base in Alaska, ready to fly within minutes, these jets look frozen. They look abandoned. But underneath that ice, something is happening that almost nobody outside the Air Force ever gets to see. This is the story of Eielson Air Force Base, the coldest fighter base in the entire United States Air Force. And the hidden secrets behind keeping a $100 million stealth fighter alive in a place where the human body can get frostbite in under 10 minutes. If you have ever wondered how the most powerful Air Force on Earth keeps its jets flying in conditions that would shut, because what you are about to learn is something most Americans have never heard before. If you respect what our pilots and ground crews go through to protect this country, let us know by typing RESPECT in the comments below.
Eielson Air Force Base sits about 26 miles southeast of Fairbanks, Alaska.
It is only about 110 miles south of the Arctic Circle. To put that in perspective, this base is... Winters here are not like winters anywhere else in the country. Temperatures regularly drop to 50 below zero. At that level of cold, the air at Nelf feels different. Breathing outside without covering your face can hurt your lungs. Exposed skin can freeze in minutes. And yet, this is exactly where the United States Air Force chose to station 2 full squadrons of its newest stealth fighter, the F-35. That is not a mistake.
It is a decision made on purpose. And the reason behind it is one of the most interesting parts of this whole story.
The Air Force needed a place brutal enough to prove these jets could survive a real Arctic war. Before the F-35 was ever sent here permanently, engineers ran it through a giant climate chamber at a base in Florida, freezing it down to and the weapon systems would still work. The jet passed. But a lab is not the real world. So commanders decided the only true test was sending these jets straight into the heart of interior Alaska.
Into temperatures that no man-made chamber could fully copy. One officer involved in that testing said something that stuck with a lot of NAS.
He said they were not trying to prove or disprove anything, they were simply making sure this weapon system could function in the one environment where failure was not an option.
And that is the kind of standard our military holds itself to, and it is something every American should be proud of. But here is where the story gets surprising. While the public imagines these jets sitting outside, frozen solid under snow and ice, like something out of an old war photo, the reality at Eielson is almost the complete opposite. And once you understand what the Air Force built to protect these planes, you will never look at a snowy runway the same way again.
Here is the truth most people do not know. The Air Force spent roughly $600 million building special infrastructure
just to keep these jets warm and ready. Part of that money went into something called individual heated shelters.
Instead of one giant hangar holding several aircraft, many of these jets get their own small heated shelter. Almost like a private garage built specifically for a single fighter plane. Why go through all that trouble? Because at 50 below zero, an aircraft left outside simply will not perform the way it needs to. Fuel lines can be affected. Hydraulic systems slow down. Even basic touchscreens and electronics inside the cockpit can struggle in that kind of cold. So rather than risk a jet failing right when it is needed most, the Air Force built homes for these aircraft strong enough to handle the worst weather in the country. And it is not just about the planes, it is about the people too. Maintenance crews at Eielson cannot simply walk outside and start working on an engine the way they might at a base in Texas or Georgia.
in the deepest part of winter. Exposed skin can suffer frostbite in under 10 minutes.
So these airmen and women wear heavy layered gear, thick gloves built for extreme cold, and they rotate in and out of the elements carefully to avoid injury, all while still getting these jets ready to fly. Think about that for a moment. These are everyday Americans, often in their early 20s, working outside in conditions that would stop most people after 5 minutes, just so a fighter jet can take off on time. That is the kind of quiet dedication that rarely makes headlines, but it absolutely deserves our respect.
Now you might be thinking the hardest part is just keeping these jets warm. But there is a real incident from the past
that shows just how dangerous extreme cold can be, even for one of the most advanced fighter jets ever built. And it involves a problem that almost grounded the entire program. Back in early 2018, during cold weather testing at Aviation, several F-35 flights
ran into a serious issue. Pilots in the middle of their flights began getting warning signals that a critical battery on board was failing.
These pilots had to act fast, cutting their flights short and landing as quickly as possible to swap out the battery before anything worse could happen. After digging into the problem, engineers found the real cause. When the nose landing gear doors opened, that sudden blast of cold overwhelmed a small heating blanket. We've got to stop that cold soak before it gets to the battery. Do whatever it takes, Davis.
Designed to keep the battery at a safe operating temperature. The blanket simply could not warm the battery fast enough,
which triggered the warning lights in the cockpit. A program official later explained that the issue had been identified.
For instance, during testing at temperatures of -30 degrees or lower, right there at Aviation. It became one of the clearest examples of why in a comfortable lab, this problem may never have shown up. Only out here. In genuine Arctic conditions, did engineers discover a weakness that needed fixing before these jets could be trusted in a real conflict. This is exactly why Aviation exists the way it does.
It is not just a base. It is a proving ground. A place where small problems get found and corrected, long before American pilots
would ever need to rely on this aircraft in actual combat. Before we go further into how this base actually protects the country,
take a quick second to like this video and subscribe. It costs nothing, but it helps this channel keep bringing you real stories
about our military that you will not find anywhere else. Now let us talk about just how serious this base has become for national defense.
Aviation is now home to 54 F-35 fighters, split across 2 full squadrons.
When you add the F-22 stealth fighters stationed nearby at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson near Anchorage, Alaska now holds more 5th-generation fighter jets than any other place on the planet. Alaska, one senior Air Force commander summed it up perfectly when he said that doing all of this at 50 below zero, faster than any other F-35 base in the country, gave every airman there a real sense of pride. And honestly, it should. Building an entire 5th-generation fighter wing in one of the harshest environments on Earth, while still keeping pace with bases in much friendlier climates, says a lot about the skill and toughness of the people stationed there.
Part of what makes Aviation so valuable is what surrounds it. Just outside the base sits a massive training area
known as the Joint Pacific-Alaska Range Complex, covering roughly 77,000 square miles of restricted airspace. That space allows pilots to train for large-scale combat scenarios, practicing everything from individual dogfighting skills to complex joint missions.
This is also where Red Flag Alaska takes place, a major training exercise where American pilots fly alongside allied nations
to prepare for real combat conditions. Picture dozens of fighters, refueling tankers, and support aircraft, all operating together in freezing temperatures,
sharpening skills that could one day decide the outcome of a real conflict. The Arctic is becoming one of the most important regions on Earth, and not everyone realizes that. Other countries, including Russia, have spent years building up military bases and airfields along their own Arctic coastline. As ice continues to shift and new shipping routes open up in the far north, the region is becoming more valuable both for resources and for military positioning. That is part of the reason the United States has invested so heavily in Aviation. Having F-35 fighters based permanently in interior Alaska means American air power can respond quickly to anything happening in the Arctic or across the Pacific, without needing to fly all the way from the lower 48 states first. There is an old quote from a famous American general back in 1935 that still get repeated by Air Force leaders today. He said, "Whoever holds Alaska will hold the world." At the time, it might have sounded like an exaggeration. Today, with fifth-generation fighters stationed there year-round, ready to launch in weather that would ground almost any other aircraft on Earth, that old quote feels more accurate than ever. And that is really the heart of this whole story. Eielson is not just a remote base, stuck in the freezing wilderness. It is one of the most strategically important locations the United States military has anywhere in the world, precisely because of how harsh and unforgiving the environment around it really is. So the next time you hear about a fighter jet sitting on a runway buried in snow, remember what is actually happening behind that image. That jet likely just rolled out of a heated shelter built specifically to protect it. The crew working around it trained for years to handle conditions most people will never experience. And every system on that aircraft has been tested against the worst weather nature can throw at it.
All so it can be ready the moment our country needs it.
These men and women chose to serve in one of the coldest, most demanding places in the entire military. And they do it without complaint, year after year. That kind of commitment deserves to be recognized, and it is exactly why bases like Eielson matter so much to the safety of this country. If this gave you a new appreciation
for what our airmen go through at the coldest base in the Air Force, hit like on this video and subscribe for more stories like this one.